Picture this: a stormy night in a quiet English village, the kind where secrets whisper through the fog. A widow's cryptic letter lands on Hercule Poirot's desk, hinting at a murder no one dares speak of. Why is she so afraid? What's she hiding? Dive into this gripping tale as Poirot unravels a mystery that could shake the very foundations of justice. The rain battered the windows of Hercule Poirot's cozy London flat, the kind of night that made you want to curl up with a good book and a cup of tisane. But for Poirot, the famous Belgian detective, peace was never long-lasting. That evening, as the clock struck 9, a knock at the door broke the silence. It was a courier, soaked to the bone, clutching a single envelope sealed with crimson wax. The letter inside was penned in a trembling hand, and it carried a weight that instantly piqued Poirot's curiosity. "Monsieur Poirot," it began, "I beg you to come to Blackthorn Manor. A terrible wrong has been done, but I cannot speak of it openly. Lives depend on your discretion." It was signed simply, Eleanor Grayson, widow. No address, no details, just an urgent plea and a train ticket to a sleepy village called Thornwick. For a man like Poirot, whose little gray cells thrived on puzzles, this was irresistible. Now, let's set the scene. Poirot, with his impeccable mustache and sharp eyes, wasn't one to jump at shadows. He'd solved cases from stolen jewels to international conspiracies, but something about this letter felt different. The widow's words hinted at a secret, so dark, so forbidden, that even writing them down seemed to terrify her. Why the secrecy? Why him? Poirot's friend, Captain Hastings, was there that night, sipping tea and offering his usual cheerful skepticism. Sounds like a wild goose. "Chase, old chap," Hastings said, but Poirot's mind was already racing. He studied the letter again, noting the elegant but shaky script, the faint scent of lavender on the paper. This wasn't just a cry for help, it was a puzzle wrapped in fear. He decided then and there to take the case, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. The next morning, Poirot packed his smartest suit and boarded the train to Thornwick. The village was a postcard of English charm-cobblestone streets. Ivy-covered cottages and a church spire piercing the gray sky. But beneath the quaint facade, Poirot sensed tension. The station master flinched when he mentioned Blackthorn Manor, and a passing villager crossed herself at the name Grayson. Clearly, Eleanor Grayson wasn't just any widow. Poirot arrived at the manor by noon, sprawling estate surrounded by overgrown gardens and a wrought-iron gate that creaked ominously. The housekeeper, a stern woman named Mrs. Dobbs, greeted him with a frown. "Mrs. Grayson's expecting you," she said, her voice clipped. "But mind yourself, sir. Some things are best left alone." Inside, the manor was a mix of faded grandeur and eerie silence. Eleanor Grayson awaited in the drawing room, a frail figure in black morning dress, her eyes darting nervously. She was in her late 50s, with silver hair pinned tightly and hands that clutched a lace handkerchief. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "thank you for coming." I didn't know who else to turn to. Her story came in fragments, each word heavy with dread. Her husband, Sir Henry Grayson, had died 6 months ago, officially of a heart attack. But Eleanor believed it was murder. She spoke of strange visitors to the manor in the weeks before his death, of whispered arguments behind closed doors, and a locked study that no one was allowed to enter, not even her. "I found something," she said, her voice barely audible. "A notebook hidden in his desk. It's dangerous. I can't read it. It's in some sort of code." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Coded notebook. A suspicious death. This was the kind of mystery his little gray cells lived for. He asked to see the notebook, and Eleanor hesitated before handing over a slim leather-bound book, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and numbers. To the untrained eye, it looked like gibberish, but Poirot knew better. He also noticed Eleanor's fear wasn't just for herself. She kept glancing at a portrait of a young woman on the wall. "My daughter Clara," she explained. "She's away safe, I hope. But if they find out I've spoken to you—" She trailed off, her fear palpable. Poirot promised discretion and began examining the notebook, his mind already piecing together possibilities. Sir Henry involved in something illegal? Was the manor hiding more than grief? As the chapter closes, Poirot's investigation is just beginning. He's got a coded notebook, a terrified widow, and a village full of secrets. What did Sir Henry know that cost him his life? Why is Eleanor so afraid to speak? The answers lie ahead, but for now, Poirot's in his element, ready to unravel the truth one clue at a time. Stay tuned for Chapter 2, where we'll follow Poirot as he digs deeper into Blackthorn Manor's shadows. If you're hooked on this mystery, hit that like button and subscribe for more chapters in this thrilling tale. The air inside Blackthorn Manor felt heavy, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Hercule Poirot sat in the dim drawing room, the cryptic notebook open on the polished mahogany table before him. The symbols loops, dashes, and odd geometric shapes danced across the pages, taunting his little gray cells. Eleanor Grayson, the widow, hovered nearby, her hands twisting the lace handkerchief into knots. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice a fragile thread, "I beg you, be careful. There are eyes everywhere in Thornwick." Her warning only fueled Poirot's curiosity. A coded notebook, a suspicious death, and a village gripped by unease. This was a puzzle worthy of his talents. Today, we're diving into Chapter 2, where Poirot begins his investigation. It uncovers unsettling clues and meets the enigmatic figures lurking in Blackthorn Manor's shadows. Let's step into the mystery. Poirot started with the notebook. Its leather cover worn, but sturdy, suggesting it had been handled often. The symbols weren't a standard cipher, not like anything he'd seen in his years of cracking codes for Scotland Yard or private clients. Traced a finger over a page, noting the precision of the ink strokes. This wasn't the work of an amateur. Sir Henry Grayson, Eleanor's late husband, had been a respected barrister, known for his sharp mind and sharper tongue. But a barrister with a secret code? It hinted at something far beyond courtroom dramas. Poirot asked Eleanor about her husband's final days. She hesitated, her eyes flickering to the door as if expecting an intruder. "He changed," she said at last. "He was always private, but those last weeks, barely slept. He'd lock himself in his study, sometimes, all night. Once, I heard him shouting, but when I knocked, he said it was nothing. The study. That was the next logical step. Poirot requested to see it, and Eleanor led him down a corridor lined with stern portraits of Grayson ancestors. The study door was heavy oak, locked tight, but Eleanor produced a key from a chain around her neck.
Yes.
Inside, the room was a time. A capsule of Sir Henry's life bookshelves stuffed with legal tomes. A desk cluttered with papers, and a faint smell of cigar smoke lingering in the air. Poirot's eyes swept the space, taking in every detail. A half-burned candle, a glass with a trace of amber liquid, and a single photograph of a young woman, Clara, Laner's daughter, the same face from the drawing room portrait. "She's studying in London," Eleanor said quickly, too quickly. Poirot made a mental note. Was Clara truly safe, or was Eleanor hiding something about her daughter? He turned his attention to the desk, methodically searching for clues. Among the papers, he found a letter, half-finished, addressed to someone named R. It read, "You must stop. The risk is too great. If they find out, we're all finished." The letter was unsigned, but the handwriting matched the notebooks. Poirot's pulse quickened. Who was R? And what risk was Sir Henry warning about? He tucked the letter into his pocket for later study, then examined the desk drawers. One was locked, but a quick twist with a letter opener revealed a small brass key inside, etched with the initials BT. Blackthorn? Or something else? Poirot's mind buzzed with possibilities, but he needed more. Eleanor, watching him, grew paler with every discovery. "You mustn't tell anyone," she whispered. "Not the police, not the villagers. They're watching." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "Who, madame?" She shook her head, lips trembling. "I don't know their names. But after Henry died, I saw men in the woods near the manor. At night, lanterns moving, voices. They're still out there." Poirot nodded, his calm demeanor masking the thrill of a new lead. Lanterns in the woods, strangers circling a grieving widow's home. This was no ordinary village gossip. decided to explore the grounds later, but first he needed to understand the household. Enter Mrs. Dobbs, the housekeeper, who'd been hovering outside the study like a hawk. Poirot invited her in, his charm disarming her scowl.
Madame Dobbs, you knew Sir Henry well.
She stiffened, her gray hair pulled into a severe bun. I kept his house, not his secrets, she said curtly. But under Poirot's gentle probing, she revealed a tidbit. Sir Henry had frequent visitors in his final months. Men in fine suits who arrived late and left before dawn. City types, she called them, her tone dripping with disdain. Never gave their names, and Sir Henry didn't offer. They'd go straight to the study, lock the door, and talk for hours. Poirot's mind clicked. Business associates? Conspirators? Or something more sinister? Next, Poirot met Thomas, the groundskeeper, a wiry man with weathered hands and a habit of avoiding eye contact. Thomas claimed to know nothing of Sir Henry's death, but when Poirot mentioned the lanterns in the woods, the man's face twitched. Poachers, probably, Thomas muttered, scuffing his boots on the floor. Woods are full of them. Poirot smiled politely, unconvinced. Poachers didn't whisper in the dark or scare a widow into silence. He thanked Thomas and made a note to watch him closely. The groundskeeper knew more than he let on. As the afternoon faded, Poirot stepped outside to inspect the manor grounds. The gardens were wild, overgrown with brambles. But he found fresh footprints near the edge of the wood's large, heavy boots, not the sort a villager might wear. A chill ran through him, not from the wind, but from the sense of being watched. He glanced back at the manor, its windows like dark eyes staring down. Eleanor's fear wasn't paranoia. Something was circling Blackthorn Manor, and Poirot was determined to find out what. He returned to the study, sketching the notebook symbols to decipher later, his mind already mapping the next steps. This chapter leaves us with more questions than answers. Who were Sir Henry's late-night visitors? Oh, what does the coded notebook hide? And why is the village so afraid of Blackthorn Manor? Poirot's little gray cells are hard at work, but the truth is still buried deep. Join us for Chapter 3, where Poirot ventures into Thornwick to uncover the village's secrets and meets a figure from Sir Henry's past. If you're loving this mystery, smash that like button and subscribe to follow Poirot's journey. A comment below, what do you think the notebook's code is hiding? Let's unravel this together. The morning sun barely pierced the fog that clung to Thornwick's cobblestone streets, giving the village an air of secrecy that Hercule Poirot found both intriguing and unsettling after a restless night at Blackthorn Manor, where every creak of the old house felt like a warning. Poirot donned his crisp overcoat and set out to explore the village. The coded notebook, the cryptic letter to R, and the mysterious footprints in the woods weighed heavily on his mind. Eleanor Grayson's fear was contagious, but Poirot's little gray cells were sharper than ever. Today in Chapter 3, we follow Poirot as he steps into Thornwick's heart, uncovering whispers of scandal, meeting a figure from Sir Henry's past, and finding clues that deepen the mystery. Grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's see what secrets this village holds. Poirot's first stop was the village square, quaint hub with a bakery, a post office, and a pub called the Rusty Anchor. The square bustled with locals, but their chatter hushed as Poirot passed, their eyes lingering on the impeccably dressed stranger. He tipped his hat, offering a polite smile, but the tension was palpable. Thornwick wasn't used to outsiders, especially not ones asking questions about Blackthorn Manor. At the bakery, Poirot bought a scone and casually inquired about the Grayson family. The baker, a plump woman named Mrs. Harrow, nearly dropped her tray. The Graysons? Good folk. But, well, best not to meddle, she stammered, her cheeks flushing. Poirot pressed gently, his charm coaxing out a tidbit. Sir Henry had been a respected figure, but after his death, rumors swirled that he'd been mixed up in shady dealings. What kind? Mrs. Harrow clammed up, muttering about dough that needed kneading. Undeterred, Poirot headed to the post office, where a wiry clerk named Mr. Finch sorted letters with nervous energy. Poirot asked about mail to or from Blackthorn Manor, hoping to trace Sir Henry's mysterious visitors. Finch's hand shook as he admitted that Sir Henry had received frequent packages in his final month small. Unmarked parcels from London. Always collected personally. Never saw who sent them, Finch said, glancing over his shoulder. But after he died, they stopped. Just like that. Poirot's mind sparked. Parcels from London, late-night visitors, a coded notebook. This wasn't a simple village tragedy. He thanked Finch and slipped a mental note into his growing file of clues. The Rusty Anchor was next. A dimly lit pub where locals nursed pints and suspicion in equal measure. Poirot ordered a glass of sherry, much to the bartender's amusement, and struck up a conversation with an old man nursing a stout. The man, introduced as Old Tom, was a retired solicitor who'd known Sir Henry for decades. Henry was a good man, Tom said, his voice raspy. But he had enemies. Always did. Clever for his own good. When Poirot mentioned the notebook, Tom's eyes narrowed. He was always scribbling, even back in our Oxford days. Loved his puzzles, Henry did. But that last year, he got cagey. Stopped coming to the pub, stopped talking to old friends. Tom leaned closer, his breath sour. If you ask me, he crossed someone powerful. Someone who don't forgive. That someone became clearer when Poirot met a new figure. Margaret Voss, sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who ran the village library. She approached him outside the pub, her demeanor bold but cautious. "You're the detective, aren't you?" she said, her voice low. "I knew Henry. We worked together years ago, before he married Eleanor." Margaret revealed she'd been Sir Henry's legal assistant in London, handling sensitive cases involving wealthy clients. She'd moved to Thornwick after a falling out with him, but she'd heard rumors even then. Henry was digging into something big, she said. Something about land deals, forged documents, maybe even blackmail. He wouldn't tell me details. But he was scared, said it could ruin families, not just his own. Poirot's ears pricked at blackmail. Could the notebook hold evidence of a scheme? Was Sir Henry a victim or a perpetrator? Margaret handed him a folded note, her hands steady but her eyes uneasy. "I found this in my old files after he died," she said. It was a memo from Sir Henry dated a month before his death, mentioning a meeting with R at a place called Raven's Hollow, a wooded area near Thornwick. "Be careful, Mr. Poirot," Margaret warned. "The people Henry dealt with, they don't like loose ends." Poirot tucked the memo away, his mind racing. Raven's Hollow, was that where the lanterns Eleanor saw came from? Back at Blackthorn Manor, Poirot sat with Eleanor to share his findings, careful not to alarm her further. He asked about Raven's Hollow and her face paled. "It's a clearing in the woods," she said. "Henry used to walk there, said it cleared his mind. But after he died, I saw those lights there at night." Poirot decided he'd investigate the clearing himself, but first he returned to the study to compare the memo's handwriting with the notebooks. They matched perfectly. The letter to R, the memo about Raven's Hollow, the coded notebook haul, were Sir Henry's work? But who was R? A partner? An enemy? And why was Eleanor so protective of her daughter Clara? As evening fell, Poirot stood at the manor's gate, staring into the darkening woods. The village's whispers had given him pieces of the puzzle, but the picture was still blurry. Sir Henry's death wasn't just a heart attack, it was tied. Two secrets that reached beyond Thornwick. Margaret Voss's warning echoed in his mind. Powerful people, unforgiving enemies. Poirot's little gray cells were buzzing, but danger was closer than ever. What would he find in Raven's Hollow? Could he crack the notebook's code before those watching from the shadows struck again? That's Chapter 3, folks, and the plot is thickening. Poirot's getting closer to the truth, but every clue raises new questions. Who is R, and what's hidden in Raven's Hollow? Stick with us for Chapter 4, where Poirot ventures into the woods and uncovers a shocking discovery. If you're gripped by this mystery, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next twist. Comment below, who do you think R is? Let's crack this case together. The moon hung low over Thornwick, casting ghostly shadows through the dense woods that bordered Blackthorn Manor. Hercule Poirot, armed with a flashlight and his unyielding curiosity, stood at the edge of Raven's Hollow, the clearing Eleanor Grayson had mentioned with such dread. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, and the silence felt alive, as if the trees themselves were watching. The coded notebook, the letter to R. And Margaret Voss's cryptic warning about Sir Henry's dangerous dealings churned in Poirot's mind. Tonight, he was determined to find answers. Welcome to Chapter 4, where Poirot ventures into the heart of Raven's Hollow, uncovers a chilling discovery, and edges closer to the truth behind Sir Henry's death. Let's follow the trail. But keep your wits about you, this mystery is about to take a dark turn. Poirot adjusted his scarf against the evening chill and stepped into the woods. His polished shoes sinking slightly into the muddy path. Raven's Hollow was a mile from the manor, a secluded spot locals avoided after dusk. Lenor's tales of flickering lanterns and Margaret's memo about a meeting here had convinced Poirot this was no ordinary clearing. As he walked, his flashlight beam caught glints of dew on spiderwebs and the occasional rustle of small creatures in the underbrush. His little gray cells were on high alert, piecing together the clues, Sir Henry's coded notebook, the mysterious R, and the footprints he'd found near the manor. Were these woods a meeting place for Sir Henry's shadowy associates, or something more sinister? The clearing came into view, a wide circle of grass ringed by ancient oaks. At its center stood a crumbling stone well, its moss-covered bricks. Hinting at long-forgotten stories? Poirot's eyes scanned the ground, and there they were, fresh footprints, the same heavy boots he'd seen near the manor. They led to the well, then veered toward a cluster of gnarled trees. Following the trail, he noticed something odd. A patch of earth recently disturbed, as if someone had been digging. Kneeling, Poirot brushed away leaves and found a small metal box, half-buried, its lock rusted but intact. His pulse quickened. This was no coincidence. Using the brass key marked BT from Sir Henry's desk, he tried the lock. It clicked open with a satisfying snap. Inside the box was a bundle of papers, yellowed and creased, along with a single photograph. The papers were receipts, dated a year ago, for large sums of money paid to a company called Bexley Trust. The name rang a bell. Old Tom at the pub had mentioned Sir Henry's shady dealings, and Margaret had spoken of land deals and blackmail. Was Bexley Trust the key? The photograph was more troubling. It showed Sir Henry stern-faced, standing beside a man with sharp features and cold eyes, both in suits, outside what looked like a London office. On the back, in Sir Henry's handwriting, were the words, "With R, don't trust him." Poirot's mind raced. Was this R? Why had Sir Henry hidden this box in Raven's Hollow? A twig snapped behind him, and Poirot spun around, his flashlight catching a fleeting shadow darting between the trees. "Who's there?" he called, his voice steady despite the chill down his spine. No answer, only the rustle of leaves. He pocketed the photograph and receipts, reburied the box to avoid suspicion, and marked the spot with a small pile of stones. Someone was watching, just as Eleanor had feared. Poirot's instincts told him to return to the manor, but not before. Circling the clearing one last time, near the well, he found another clue. A cigarette butt, still fresh, with a gold band around its filter. Not a common brand, city-made, expensive. The kind a city type might smoke, as Mrs. Dobbs had. Described Sir Henry's visitors back at Blackthorn Manor. Poirot found Eleanor in the drawing room, her face drawn with worry. He showed her the photograph, careful not to reveal the box's location. "Do you know this man?" he asked. Eleanor's hands trembled as she studied it. I've seen him," she whispered. "He came to the manor once, months before." "Henry died," they argued in the study. "I heard raised voices, something about debts and promises. Henry never told me his name." Poirot nodded, his suspicions growing. The man in the photo perhaps was no ordinary acquaintance. He asked about Bexley Trust, but Eleanor shook her head. "Henry never mentioned it. He kept his work from me, said it was safer that way." To dig deeper, Poirot enlisted Captain Hastings, who'd arrived in Thornwick that morning, eager to join the adventure. Hastings, ever the optimist, suggested they visit the village records office to trace Bexley Trust. The office, a cramped room above the post office, held dusty ledgers of local businesses and land deals. With the clerk's reluctant help, they found a file on Bexley Trust Shell Company registered in London, linked to property acquisitions in Thornwick and nearby villages. The records listed a director, one Reginald Tate RT Poirot murmured, recalling the initials BT. On the key was Reginald Tate, the R in Sir Henry's letter and memo, and was BT. Misdirection, or did it point to Bexley Trust itself? As they left the records office, Poirot noticed a man lingering across the street, his hat pulled low. The glint of a gold-banded cigarette in his hand sent a jolt through Poirot. It was no coincidence. He nudged Hastings, whoever oblivious hadn't noticed. "We are followed, mon ami," Poirot whispered. "Keep walking." They returned to the manor without incident, but Poirot's mind was ablaze. The box, the photograph, the cigarette all pointed to a conspiracy that Sir Henry had stumbled into, one that cost him his life. But who was Reginald Tate? And what did he want kept secret? As Chapter 4 closes, Raven's Hollow has revealed its secrets, but each answer breeds new questions. The photograph ties Sir Henry to a dangerous man, and Bexley Trust hints at a scheme bigger than Thornwick. Who is watching Poirot, and what will they do to protect their secrets? Join us for Chapter 5, where Poirot deciphers a piece of the notebooks. Decoding confronts a suspect who knows more than they let on. If you're hooked on this mystery, smash that like button and subscribe for the next twist. Comment below, what do you think Bexley Trust is hiding? Let's unravel this with Poirot. The flickering light of a single candle cast long shadows across the study in Blackthorn Manor, where Hercule Poirot sat hunched over Sir Henry Grayson's cryptic notebook. The coded symbols, loops, dashes, and geometric shapes seemed to mock him, but Poirot's little gray cells were relentless. The discoveries in Raven's Hollow, the metal box, the photograph of Sir Henry with the mysterious R, and the receipts tied to Bexley Trust had tightened the web of intrigue. Someone was watching, someone dangerous, and Poirot knew time was slipping away. Welcome to Chapter 5, where Poirot begins to unravel the notebook's secrets, confronts a key suspect, and uncovers a truth that brings him closer to the heart of the forbidden investigation. Let's dive into the mystery, but hold on tight. Shadows are closing in. Poirot's first task was the notebook. Its pages, filled with precise, unfamiliar symbols, suggested a cipher more complex than a simple substitution code. He spread out his notes, comparing the symbols to known ciphers from his days consulting for Scotland Yard. Captain Hastings, sipping tea and trying to be helpful, suggested it might be a child's game. "Nonsense, mon ami," Poirot said, his mustache twitching. Sir Henry was no child. This is the work of a man protecting something vital. After hours of trial and error, Poirot noticed a pattern. Certain symbols appeared in groups of 5, repeating at regular intervals. A Vigenère cipher, perhaps, but with a twist. He tested a keyword, Bexley, and the first line yielded a fragment. "Trust betrays." His heart raced. The notebook wasn't just a record. It was a warning. The decoded phrase pointed to Bexley Trust, the shadowy company linked to Sir Henry's receipts. Poirot cross-checked the notebook's other pages, using Bexley as the key. Slowly, more words emerged. Land fraud, false deeds, Reginald's debt. Reginald, likely Reginald Tate, the R from the letter and photograph. The notebook was Sir Henry's attempt to document a scheme, perhaps to expose it or protect himself. But why hide it in code? And why bury evidence in Raven's Hollow? Poirot suspected Sir Henry feared for his life. The photograph's note, "Don't trust him," suggested Reginald Tate was no friend. Poirot needed to find Tate, but first, he had to confront someone closer to home. Enter Thomas, the groundskeeper, whose nervous demeanor and vague answers about the lanterns in the woods had raised Poirot's suspicions. Poirot found him in the manor stables, mucking out stalls with a scowl. "Monsieur Thomas," Poirot began, his tone deceptively mild, "you know more about Sir Henry's troubles than you claim.
House.
Thomas froze, his grip tightening on the pitchfork.
Poirot.
Held up the gold-banded cigarette butt from Raven's Hollow. "This is yours, perhaps? Or someone you know?" Thomas's eyes widened, but he shook his head. "Don't know nothing about that," he muttered. Poirot pressed, mentioning the footprints in the box.
Oh.
Thomas's face twitched, and after a long pause he cracked. "All right, I saw things," he admitted. "Men in the woods, city men. They met Sir Henry at the well, late at night. I heard em talk about money, big money, but I kept my head down, didn't want trouble." Thomas's story confirmed Eleanor's fears of strangers circling the manor. He described one mantle, sharp-featured, smoking those gold-banded cigarettes who matched the figure in the photograph. "Called him Reggie," Thomas said. "Sir Henry didn't like him, but they talked a lot. Last time I saw him, Sir Henry was angry, said something about cleaning up the mess." Poirot's mind clicked. Reginald, Tate, Bexley Trust, in a heated argument pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. But Thomas clammed up when asked about the night Sir Henry died. "I was in my cottage," he insisted. "Didn't see nothing." Him go. But his instincts screamed that Thomas was holding back. Back in the study, Poirot shared his findings with Eleanor, who grew paler with every word. "Reginald Tate," she whispered. "I remember now. Henry mentioned him once, said he was trouble, but never explained why." She clutched her handkerchief, her voice trembling. "Monsieur Poirot, if this Tate is involved, Clara might be in danger. She's in London, studying. But what if they know I've spoken to you?" Poirot reassured her, though his own concerns were growing. Clara's absence felt like more than a coincidence. He asked Eleanor for her daughter's address, promising to check on her safety through a trusted contact in London, to dig deeper into Bexley Trust. Poirot enlisted Hastings to send a telegram to a friend at Scotland Yard, requesting records on the company and Reginald Tate. While waiting for a reply, Poirot returned to the notebook, decoding another line. "Hollow holds proof." Raven's Hollow again. Had he missed something in the box? Or was there more hidden in the clearing? He decided to revisit the site at dawn, but not before taking precautions. The man watching him in the village, the shadow in the woods, someone was tracking his movements. Poirot instructed Hastings to keep an eye on the manor's grounds, though Hastings' enthusiasm far outstripped his stealth. As night fell, Poirot sat by the study's fireplace, the notebook open before him. The decoded fragments painted a grim picture. Sir Henry had uncovered a fraud involving Bexley Trust, possibly tied to forged land deeds and blackmail. Reginald Tate was at the center, but was he the mastermind or a pawn? And what role did Thomas play, skulking in the shadows? The manor creaked around him, each sound a reminder of Eleanor's fear. Poirot's little gray cells were working overtime, but the danger was closer than ever. If Tate or his allies knew Poirot had the notebook, Blackthorn Manor might become a trap. Chapter 5 leaves us teetering on the edge. The notebook's code is cracking, revealing a web of fraud and betrayal. But Poirot's pursuit of Reginald Tate puts him in the crosshairs. What else lies hidden in Raven's Hollow, and will Clara Grayson be safe? Join us for Chapter 6, where Poirot returns to the clearing and faces an unexpected visitor who changes everything. If you're gripped by this tale, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Comment below, what do you think Sir Henry was hiding in Raven's Hollow? Let's keep unraveling this mystery with Poirot. The first light of dawn crept through the mist, painting Raven's Hollow in shades of silver and gray. Hercule Poirot stood once more at the edge of the clearing, his flashlight now tucked away, replaced by the sharp focus of his little gray cells. The decoded fragments from Sir Henry Grayson's notebook Trust betrays. Land fraud. Hollow holds proof echoed in his mind, urging him back to this eerie spot. The metal box he'd found here had revealed receipts, and a photograph of Sir Henry with the mysterious R. Presumed to be Reginald Tate, but Poirot sensed there was more to uncover. The manor's secrets, Eleanor's fear, and the shadowy figure watching his every move had raised the stakes. Welcome to Chapter 6, where Poirot returns to Raven's Hollow, encounters an unexpected visitor, and uncovers a revelation that shifts the entire investigation. Let's step into the fog and see what awaits. Poirot's polished shoes crunched on the frost-kissed grass. As he approached the crumbling stone well at the center of the clearing, the pile of stones marking the buried box was undisturbed, but the air felt charged, as if the hollow itself was holding its breath. He knelt by the well, peering into its dark depths. The notebook's clue, hollow holds proof, nagged at him. Was it literal? Did the well conceal something? Using a stick, he probed the well's edge, dislodging loose dirt. A metallic glint caught his eye, a small hook embedded in the inner wall, barely visible. With careful effort, he tugged it, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a sealed, enveloped its wax stamp bearing the same crimson seal as Eleanor's letter to him. His pulse quickened. This was no accident. The envelope contained a single sheet written in Sir Henry's hand, but not in code. It was a draft of a letter addressed to the Home Office. It read, "I have evidence of a conspiracy involving Bexley Trust and forged land deeds in Thornwick. Reginald Tate is implicated, but others hold the strings. I fear for my life and my family's safety. The proof is hidden where none will look." The letter was unfinished, unsigned, but its weight was undeniable. Sir Henry had been on the verge of exposing a scandal, one that reached beyond the village. Poirot slipped the letter into his coat, his mind racing. The others Sir Henry mentioned, who were they? And why had he never sent this letter? Rustle in the trees snapped Poirot out of his thoughts. He turned, expecting another fleeting shadow, but this time a figure stepped into the clearing. It was a young woman, no older than 25, with auburn hair and eyes wide with alarm. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I'm Clara Grayson. I had to come." Poirot's heart skipped. Clara Eleanor's daughter, who was supposed to be safe in London. Her sudden appearance was as shocking as it was troubling. "Mademoiselle, why are you here?" he asked, his tone gentle but firm. Clara glanced over her shoulder, as if expecting pursuit. "I got a message from Mother saying you were investigating Father's death. I couldn't stay away. I know things Father told me before he died." Clara's story came in a rush. She'd been studying law in London, but Sir Henry had confided in her during his final weeks, warning her to stay away from Thornwick. "He said he'd uncovered something rotten," she explained, clutching a scarf against the cold. "A group of businessmen, he called them, were buying up land in villages like Thornwick, using forged deeds to swindle owners. Father was their lawyer at first, but when he realized what they were doing, he tried to stop them." She paused, tears welling. "He told me to keep quiet, said it was too dangerous. Then he died, and I didn't know what to do." Poirot's mind clicked. The receipts, the notebook, the letter all pointed to this land fraud scheme, but Clara's presence was a complication. If she was here, who else knew? Poirot escorted Clara back to Blackthorn Manor, urging her to stay hidden until he could ensure her safety. Eleanor was stunned to see her daughter, her relief mixed with panic. "Clara, you shouldn't have come," she cried, embracing her. Clara insisted she wanted to help, but Poirot sensed danger. The man with the gold-banded cigarette, the shadow in the village, someone was watching. Clara's return might draw them closer. He questioned her further. Learning that Sir Henry had mentioned a name besides Reginald Tate, Lord Alistair Crane, a wealthy landowner with ties to London's elite. Crane's name wasn't in the notebook, but Clara recalled her father cursing him during a late-night phone call. He said Crane was untouchable, Clara whispered. But Father was going to try. To protect Clara, Poirot sent a second telegram to his Scotland Yard contact, requesting urgent information on Lord Alistair Crane and any connection to Bexley Trust. He also asked Captain Hastings to keep watch over the manor, though Hastings' bumbling enthusiasm made Poirot wince. "Stay alert, mon ami," Poirot warned. "We are dealing with wolves, not sheep." Back in the study, Poirot re-examined the photograph of Sir Henry and R. The background showed a building with a distinctive crest-a lion and a crown. He'd seen it before, on a London club known for hosting powerful men. If Reginald Tate frequented such places, he was no small-time crook. And if Lord Crane was involved, the stakes were even higher. As the day wore on, Poirot returned to the notebook, decoding another fragment, Crane's ledger. A ledger, perhaps the final piece of evidence Sir Henry had hidden. But where? The Wells envelope was a bold find, but hollow holds proof suggested more. Poirot resolved to search the manor's attic and cellar, places Sir Henry might have concealed something as critical as a ledger. But Clara's arrival gnawed at him. Her knowledge made her a target, and Eleanor's fear was now doubled. As evening fell, a knock at the manor's door sent a chill through the room. "Mrs. Dobbs," the housekeeper answered, her face paling as she announced. "A gentleman to see you, Monsieur Poirot." Says his name's Tate. Chapter 6 ends with the stakes higher than ever. Clara's unexpected arrival, the letter from the well. In the looming shadow of Lord Alistair Crane tightened the noose around Poirot's investigation. Now Reginald Tate himself stands at the door. What does he want? And is he friend or foe? Join us for Chapter 7, where Poirot faces Tate Hedden and uncovers a betrayal that shakes Blackthorn Manor. If you're hooked on this twisting tale, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for more. Comment below. Do you think Tate is the mastermind? Or is Lord Crane pulling the strings? Let's unravel this with Poirot. The grand hall of Blackthorn Manor seemed to shrink as the name Tate echoed from Mrs. Dobbs' lips. Hercule Poirot stood poised, his little gray cells humming with anticipation. The arrival of Reginald Tate, the mysterious R from Sir Henry Grayson's letter and photograph, was no mere coincidence. The notebooks decoded warnings, trust betrays, land fraud. Crane's ledger and Clara Grayson's sudden return had already heightened the stakes. Now, with a potential suspect at the door, Poirot sensed a turning point. Was Tate here to confess, threaten, or deceive? Welcome to Chapter 7, where Poirot confronts Reginald Tate, uncovers a web of betrayal, and faces a twist that shakes the foundation of his investigation. Settle in, dear viewers, because this encounter will send ripples through Thornwick's shadows. Poirot adjusted his tie, his calm exterior masking the storm of calculations within. He instructed Eleanor and Clara to remain in the drawing room, out of sight, while Captain Hastings, ever eager, hovered nearby, clutching a poker he'd grabbed just in case. Poirot shot him a look. "Mon ami, put that down. We use the mind, not the fireplace." Mrs. Dobbs led the visitor into the parlor, where Poirot awaited. Standing by a roaring fire that did little to warm the room's chill, Reginald Tate was exactly as the photograph suggested, tall, sharp-featured, with cold blue eyes and a tailored suit that screamed London wealth. A gold-banded cigarette dangled from his fingers, confirming Poirot's suspicions from Raven's Hollow. "Monsieur Tate," Poirot greeted, his voice smooth as silk. "To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure?" Tate's smile was thin, more predator than guest. "You're the detective, aren't you? Stirring up trouble in our quiet little village." His tone was light, but his eyes were hard, assessing Poirot like a chess opponent. Poirot invited him to sit, noting the man's confident stride and the faint scent of expensive cologne. "I am merely a guest of Madame Grayson," Poirot replied, seeking to understand the circumstances of her husband's death. Tate's smile faltered, and he lit his cigarette, exhaling a cloud of smoke. "Henry's death was a tragedy. Heart attack, they say." "Why poke at old wounds?" Poirot's mustache twitched. Tate's casual dismissal was too practiced, too perfect. Poirot decided to test the waters. "Perhaps because some wounds are not so old, monsieur, I have found items, a notebook, for instance, and papers, suggesting Sir Henry was entangled in matters most serious." Tate's hand paused mid-puff, but he recovered quickly. "Henry was always scribbling nonsense," he said, waving a hand. "Loved his little codes, meant nothing." Poirot leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Tate's and Bexley Trust. "Does that mean nothing to?" The name hit like a dart. Tate's jaw tightened, and for a moment the parlor was silent save for the crackling fire. "You're fishing, Poirot," Tate said at last. "Bexley Trust is just a business. Property deals, nothing more. Henry was our lawyer, handled the paperwork. If he got himself worked up, that's on him." The lie was smooth, but Poirot's little gray cells caught the cracks. He produced the photograph from Raven's Hollow, sliding it across the table. "This is you, we?" With Sir Henry outside a certain London club. He wrote, "Don't trust him." Why would he write such a thing? Tate's composure slipped, his cigarette trembling slightly. "That's old history," he snapped. "Henry and I had disagreements, sure. Business gets messy. But I didn't kill him, if that's what you're implying. Poirot raised an eyebrow. Then perhaps you can explain the receipts I found. For sums far too large for simple property deals. Or the letter to the Home Office, accusing you of fraud. Tate's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, a crash from the drawing room broke the tension. Hastings burst in, red-faced, with Eleanor and Clara behind him. Sorry, Poirot, I tripped over a vase, Hastings blurted. Clara, pale but defiant, stepped forward. You're Reginald Tate, she said, her voice shaking with anger. Father warned me about you, said you'd ruin us all. Tate's gaze shifted to Clara, and for a fleeting moment Poirot saw fear in his eyes. Clara Grayson, Tate said, standing. Didn't expect to see you here. Your father should have taught you to stay out of men's business. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Poirot stepped between them, his voice icy. You will speak with respect, or you will leave. Tate backed off, tossing his cigarette into the fire. You're digging a deep hole, Poirot, he said. Some things are better left buried. He strode out, leaving a trail of smoke and suspicion. Poirot turned to Clara, who was trembling but resolute. He knew father was on to them, she said. He came to the manor once, after a fight with father. I overheard them something about a ledger, and Lord Crane not being pleased. That name again. Lord Alistair Crane. The decoded phrase Crane's ledger flashed in Poirot's mind. Was it the key to the fraud Sir Henry had uncovered? Why, after Tate's departure, Poirot gathered Eleanor, Clara, and Hastings in the study. To regroup, a telegram from Scotland Yard had arrived, confirming Reginald Tate's role as a director of Bexley Trust and noting Lord Alistair Crane as a major investor. Crane was a powerful figure, with estates across England and a reputation for ruthlessness in business. The Yard had no concrete evidence against him, but whispers of shady deals followed his name. Poirot suspected the ledger mentioned in the notebook was Crane's record of the fraudulent land deals, hidden by Sir Henry to protect his family or to use as leverage. But where was it? The attic and cellar searches had yielded nothing, and Raven's Hollow had given up its secrets. Or had it? Poirot returned to the notebook, decoding another line, beneath the hearth. His eyes darted to the study's fireplace, its massive stone hearth untouched since Sir Henry's time. With Hastings' reluctant help, Poirot pried at the stones, revealing a hidden cavity. Inside was a slim ledger, its pages filled with dates. Names and sums tied to land purchases in Thornwick and beyond. One name stood out, Lord Alistair Crane, listed as receiving payments for consulting. It was a euphemism, Poirot knew, for something far darker. The ledger was the proof Sir Henry had died for, and now it was in Poirot's hands. As night fell, the manor felt more like a fortress under siege. Tate's visit was a warning, and Clara's presence had escalated the danger. Poirot locked the ledger in his suitcase, vowing to protect it at all costs. But Tate's words, "Some things are better left buried," rang in his ears. Was Tate acting alone? Or was he Lord Crane's enforcer? And what would they do to keep their secrets safe? Poirot's little gray cells were ablaze, but the path ahead was treacherous. Chapter 7 leaves us on a knife's edge. Reginald Tate's confrontation has confirmed his role in the conspiracy, and the discovery of Crane's ledger brings Poirot closer to the truth. But with Clara in the open and Lord Crane looming, the danger is mounting. Join us for Chapter where Poirot takes a bold step to confront the mastermind and uncovers a secret that ties Blackthorn Manor to London's elite. If you're gripped by this mystery, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for more. Comment below, will Poirot outsmart Tate and Crane, or is he walking into a trap? Let's unravel this with our favorite detective. The air in Blackthorn Manor was thick with tension, the weight of the newly discovered ledger pressing on Hercule Poirot's mind like a storm cloud. Tucked safely in his suitcase, the ledger detailing Lord Alistair Crane's illicit payments, and the fraudulent land deals tied to Bexley Trust, was the key to unraveling Sir Henry Grayson's murder. Reginald Tate's threatening visit had confirmed his role in the conspiracy, while Poirot's little gray cells were now fixed on a bigger target. Lord Crane, the untouchable aristocrat whose name loomed over the case. With Clara Grayson's safety at risk and shadowy figures circling the manor, Poirot knew he had to act fast. Welcome to Chapter 8, where Poirot ventures to London to confront the mastermind, covers a web of power and deceit, and faces a revelation that ties Blackthorn Manor to the heart of the elite. Let's follow Poirot into the lion's den. Keep your eyes peeled, the stakes are higher than ever. Poirot rose early, the manor still cloaked in pre-dawn silence. He gathered Eleanor, Clara, and Captain Hastings in the study to outline his plan. "Miss," he said, his voice steady. "The ledger points to Lord Alistair Crane, a man of influence who hides behind wealth and title. I must go to London to find him, to learn how deep this conspiracy runs." Eleanor's face paled, and Clara gripped her mother's hand. "What about us?" Clara asked. "Tate knows I'm here." Poirot nodded, his mustache twitching with resolve. He arranged for a trusted Scotland Yard contact, Inspector Japp, to send a discreet officer to guard the manor. Hastings, despite his protests, was tasked with staying behind. "I mean, your courage is admirable, but your subtlety is lacking," Poirot said, earning a sheepish grin. By mid-morning, Poirot was on a train to London, the ledger locked in a hidden compartment. Of his suitcase, the photograph of Sir Henry and Reginald Tate, with its lion and crowned crest, pointed him to the Diogenes Club, a secretive haunt for London's elite. If Crane was involved, this was where Poirot would find traces of him. The city greeted him with its usual bustle, horse-drawn cabs clattering alongside motor cars, vendors hawking papers, and the hum of power in the air. At the Diogenes Club, a stern porter eyed Poirot's impeccable suit but hesitated at his foreign accent. "I am expected," Poirot lied smoothly, dropping Inspector Japp's name. The porter relented, allowing him into the club's hushed, wood-paneled halls. Inside, Poirot's charm worked its magic. A waiter bribed with a generous tip confirmed that Lord Alistair Crane was a regular, often seen with Reginald Tate and other men in private rooms. "They talk business," the waiter whispered, "but not the kind you'd read about in the Times." Poirot's eyes gleamed. He requested access to the club's guest logs, claiming it was a matter of personal inquiry. The logs revealed Crane's frequent visits, often coinciding with Tate's. In one entry caught Poirot's attention, a meeting with Sir Henry Grayson, just weeks before his death. The note beside it read, "Bexley Trust Discussion." Poirot's pulse quickened. This was no coincidence. Sir Henry had confronted Crane here, likely about the fraud, to track Crane. Poirot visited a contact at the land registry office, a fussy clerk named Mr. Withers, who owed him a favor. Withers confirmed Bexley Trust's dealings, dozens of land purchases in rural villages, including Thornwick, with deeds that raised red flags. "Some of these signatures look forged," Withers admitted, peering through his spectacles. "But the paperwork's been approved by high-ups. Lord Crane's name carries weight." Poirot showed him the ledger's entries, and Withers blanched. This suggests payoffs to officials," he stammered. "It's true. It's a scandal that could topple careers." Poirot nodded, his mind racing. Crane wasn't just buying land, he was rigging the system. And Sir Henry had threatened to expose him. Poirot's next stop was Crane's London office, a grand building near Mayfair, with the same lion and crown crest from the photograph. Posing as a Belgian investor, Poirot secured a brief meeting with Crane's secretary, a nervous young man named Perkins. "Lord Crane is unavailable," Perkins said, avoiding Poirot's gaze. But under gentle probing, he let slip that Crane was hosting a private dinner that evening at his Belgravia mansion. "Important guests," Perkins muttered. "Business matters." Poirot thanked him, his plan forming. The dinner meant allies, perhaps conspirators. If he could observe, he might identify the others Sir Henry's letter had warned about. That evening, Poirot donned his finest evening wear and positioned himself across from Crane's mansion. Blending into the shadows with a newspaper as cover, carriages and motor cars arrived, disgorging men in top hats and tails. Among them was Reginald Tate, his gold-banded cigarette glowing in the dusk. Another figure caught Poirot's eye, a portly man with a booming laugh, later identified by a passing cabby as Sir Gerald Warwick, a Home Office official. The ledger's payoffs to officials flashed in Poirot's mind. Was Warwick one of Crane's puppets? As the dinner began, Poirot slipped around the mansion's perimeter, peering through a window. Crane, tall and silver-haired, presided. At the table, his commanding presence undeniable. Tate sat to his right, tense but attentive. The conversation was inaudible, but their guarded glances spoke volumes. Poirot's reconnaissance was cut short by a sharp tap on his shoulder. A burly man in a dark coat loomed over him. "Move along, mate," he growled, his hand on a concealed weapon. Poirot smiled, feigning a lost tourist, and retreated, but not before noting the man's gold watch, a luxury item, out of place for a mere guard. Back at his hotel, Poirot received a telegram from Inspector Japp. Crane was under quiet scrutiny for financial irregularities, but no charges had stuck. "He's slippery," Japp wrote. "Watch your back." Poirot's little gray cells buzzed. Crane's influence reached into the government, and Tate was his enforcer. But Sir Henry's ledger could change everything, if Poirot could protect it. Returning to Thornwick the next morning, Poirot found the manor on edge. Clara had received an anonymous note slipped under the door. "Leave, or you'll end like your father." Eleanor was frantic, and even Hastings looked shaken. Poirot reassured them, but his mind was on Crane's dinner. The presence of Sir Gerald Warwick suggested a conspiracy that stretched from Thornwick to Whitehall. The ledger was proof, but using it meant confronting Crane directly, a dangerous move. As Poirot locked the ledger away, he noticed a new detail in the notebook's decoded text. "Warwick knows." Sir Henry had suspected the Home Office official. Chapter 8 leaves Poirot teetering on the edge of a breakthrough. The London trip has exposed Crane's power and Warwick's involvement. But the anonymous threat to Clara signals that time is running out. Can Poirot outmaneuver a man as untouchable as Crane? Join us for Chapter 9, where Poirot sets a trap to expose the conspirators and faces a betrayal from within Blackthorn Manor. If you're hooked on this twisting tale, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Comment below, will Poirot's trap catch Crane, or is he walking into one himself? Let's unravel this mystery with our favorite detective. The heavy oak doors of Blackthorn Manor seemed to groan under the weight of secrets as Hercule Poirot paced the study, its little gray cells ablaze with purpose. The ledger, safely hidden, held proof of Lord Alistair Crane's fraudulent land. Deals and payoffs to Sir Gerald Warwick, a Home Office official. Reginald Tate's threatening visit and the anonymous note to Clara Grayson. "Leave, or you'll end like your father had turned the manor into a fortress under siege." With London's elite entangled in Sir Henry Grayson's murder, Poirot knew he had to act decisively. Welcome to Chapter 9, where Poirot crafts a daring trap to expose the conspirators, uncovers a shocking betrayal within Blackthorn Manor, and edges closer to the truth. Buckle up, dear viewers, because this chapter is a roller coaster of deception and danger. Poirot gathered Eleanor, Clara, and Captain Hastings in the study. The fire casting flickering shadows on the walls. "Mes amis," he began, his voice steady. "We are dealing with men who believe themselves untouchable. To catch them, we must make them think they have one." His plan was bold. Leak a false rumor that the ledger had been sent to Scotland Yard, forcing Crane and his allies to act rashly. Poirot would stage a meeting at Raven's Hollow, claiming to hand over the ledger to a contact from London. In reality, Inspector Japp's men would be waiting in the shadows to catch the conspirators red-handed. Eleanor clutched her handkerchief, her eyes wide. "It's too dangerous," she whispered. Clara, however, nodded fiercely. "Father died. For this, let's finish it." To set the trap, Poirot sent a carefully worded telegram to his Scotland Yard contact, Inspector Japp, requesting officers to hide near Raven's Hollow at midnight. He then instructed Hastings to visit the Rusty Anchor, the village pub, and accidentally let slip that Poirot had sent Sir Henry's ledger to the authorities. Hastings, thrilled at the chance to play spy, practiced his lines with comical earnestness. Mon ami Poirot sighed. Less theatrics, more discretion. Meanwhile, Poirot asked Clara to write a letter to her university friend in London, mentioning the ledger's delivery to Scotland Yard, but to leave it unsealed on the manor's hall tabula, bait for prying eyes within the household. The plan moved swiftly. By afternoon, whispers of the ledger's fate buzzed through Thornwick. Poirot watched from the manor's window as Thomas, the groundskeeper, lingered near the gate, nervous glances betraying more than he'd admitted. Mrs. Dobbs, the housekeeper, was equally suspect, her stern demeanor masking a quiet unease. Poirot's instincts told him someone inside the manor was feeding information to Crane or Tate. To test this, he left the study door ajar, the ledger's hiding place locked, drawer visible but secure. He then slipped out, pretending to head to the village, but doubled back to watch from the garden. Sure enough, Mrs. Dobbs entered the study, her movements furtive. She tried the drawer, her hands trembling, then left empty-handed. Poirot's heart sank. The housekeeper, loyal for decades, was betraying Eleanor. Confronting her alone was risky, so he waited, noting her glance toward the woods raven's hollow. Perhaps followed her at a distance, her path leading to a secluded spot where she met a man in a dark coat, the same burly figurehood. Confronted Poirot in London. They spoke in hushed tones, and Poirot caught fragments. Ledger's gone, Crane's furious tonight. Mrs. Dobbs was no mere servant. She was Crane's eyes in the manor. Back at the manor, Poirot confronted Mrs. Dobbs in the kitchen, his voice calm but piercing. "Madame, why do you betray your mistress?" Her face crumpled and tears spilled. "They threatened my son," she sobbed. "He's in debt to Tate's men. He said they'd hurt him if I didn't watch Eleanor." Poirot's expression softened, but his resolve didn't waver. "You will help me now," he said. "Tell them the ledger will be at Raven's Hollow tonight. Midnight. Say nothing more." Mrs. Dobbs nodded, guilt etching her features. Poirot's trap was set, but the betrayal stung Eleanor had trusted her. As night fell, Poirot prepared for the rendezvous. He slipped a decoy ledger notebook filled with nonsense into his coat, keeping the real one hidden, Clara insisted. On coming, but Poirot refused. "Mademoiselle, your courage is admirable, but your safety is paramount." Hastings, armed with a flashlight and unhelpful bravado, joined Poirot instead. At Raven's Hollow, the clearing was silent, the stone well looming like a sentinel. Japp's men, hidden in the trees, signaled their presence with a faint whistle. Poirot placed the decoy ledger on the well's edge, stepping back into the shadows. The trap was ready. Midnight struck, and footsteps crunched in the darkness. Reginald Tate emerged, his gold-banded cigarette glowing. Behind him was the burly man from London, and to Poirot's shock, Sir Gerald Warwick, the Home Office official. His face grimmed. "Where's the ledger, Poirot?" Tate demanded, his voice low. Poirot stepped forward, hands raised. "It is there, monsieur. But tell me, why kill Sir Henry?" Tate sneered. "He got greedy, wanted a bigger cut, thought he could blackmail Crane." Warwick hissed, "Enough, Tate." But the damage was done. Japp's men sprang from the trees, pistols drawn, and chaos erupted. Tate bolted, but the burly man was caught cursing loudly in the confusion. Poirot grabbed the decoy ledger, ensuring the real one stayed safe. Back at the manor, Japp's men secured the prisoners, but Tate had vanished into the woods. Warwick's presence confirmed the conspiracy's reach into the government. But Crane remained untouchable for now. Mrs. Dobbs, remorseful, confessed. Everything. Crane had paid her to spy, using her son's debts as leverage. Eleanor, heartbroken, forgave her, but asked her to leave. Clara, shaken but resolute, vowed to help Poirot bring Crane to justice. Chapter 9 ends with the trap sprung, but the mastermind still at large. Tate's escape in Crane's absence mean the danger isn't over, and Mrs. Dobbs' betrayal has left scars. Can Poirot corner Lord Crane before he strikes back? Join us for Chapter 10, the thrilling finale, where Poirot faces Crane in a battle of wits and uncovers the final secret of Blackthorn Manor. If you're gripped by this tale, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for the conclusion. Comment below, will Poirot outsmart Crane, or is the Lord too powerful? Let's finish this mystery with our favorite detective. The fog that clung to Blackthorn Manor seemed thicker than ever, as if Thornwick itself was holding its breath for the climax of Hercule Poirot's investigation. The ledger, brimming with proof of Lord Alistair Crane's fraudulent land deals and payoffs to Sir Gerald Warwick, was now safely in Poirot's possession. But the trap at Raven's Hollow had only half succeeded. Reginald Tate had escaped, and Crane, the mastermind, remained untouched, his influence stretching from the village to London's elite. The betrayal of Mrs. Dobbs, the anonymous threat to Clara Grayson, and the capture of Warwick and Crane's enforcer had brought Poirot to the edge of victory, but also danger. Welcome to Chapter 10, the thrilling finale of Poirot and the Widow's Secret, where Poirot faces Lord Crane in a battle of wits, uncovers the final secret of Blackthorn Manor, and brings justice to Sir Henry Grayson's memory. Hold on tight, dear viewers, as we unravel the last threads of this forbidden investigation. Poirot stood in the Manor study, the ledger open before him, its pages a map of corruption, forged deeds, payoffs to officials, and Lord Crane's name at the center. Eleanor and Clara Grayson sat nearby, their faces etched with hope and fear. Captain Hastings, nursing a bruised ego from the Raven's Hollow scuffle, paced restlessly. "We've got Warwick, Poirot," Hastings said. "Why not let Scotland Yard handle Crane?" Poirot's mustache twitched. "Mon ami, men like Crane do not fall by chance. They must be outwitted." His plan was audacious. Confront Crane directly, using the ledger as bait to force a confession. But first, he needed to ensure Tate's capture. As the fugitive was Crane's eyes and ears, Poirot contacted Inspector Japp, who confirmed that Warwick was talking, implicating Crane in exchange for leniency. The burly enforcer, identified as a hired thug named Malone, had also confessed to following Poirot in London on Crane's orders. But Tate's whereabouts were unknown, and Japp's men were scouring Thornwick's woods. Poirot's little gray cells buzzed with a new suspicion. Tate, desperate and cornered, might return to Blackthorn Manor, seeking the ledger or revenge. To prepare, Poirot rigged a subtle alarm thread across the study door to alert him of intruders. He also asked Clara to stay in her room, guarded by a yard officer, while Eleanor agreed to keep up appearances, as if the manor were unaware of the danger. The breakthrough came at noon, when a telegram arrived from Japp. Tate had been spotted at a London train station, boarding a train back to Thornwick. "It's coming for you, Poirot," Japp wrote. "Be ready." Poirot's plan shifted into high gear. He sent a message to Crane's London office, posing as Tate, claiming the ledger was still at Blackthorn Manor and urging Crane to come retrieve it before Scotland Yard closed in. The bait was risky. Crane was no fool, but Poirot gambled on his arrogance. A man who believed himself untouchable would want to secure the ledger himself. As evening fell, Poirot gathered his evidence: the ledger, the coded notebook, the Raven's Hollow letter, and the photograph of Tate and Sir Henry. He decoded one final line from the notebook: "Crane's shadow falls long." It was a poetic warning from Sir Henry, hinting at Crane's vast influence. Poirot's mind clicked. Crane's power relied on fear, but the ledger could shatter that illusion. At dusk, a motor car's rumble announced a visitor. Lord Alistair Crane stepped into Blackthorn Manor, his silver hair gleaming under the chandelier, his presence commanding but cold. With him was Reginald Tate, disheveled and tense, a revolver glinting in his coat pocket. Poirot had expected Crane, but Tate's presence was a dangerous surprise. In the drawing room, Poirot faced them, his demeanor unruffled. "Monsieur Crane, Monsieur Tate, you honor us with your presence," he said, gesturing to the ledger on the table. Crane's eyes narrowed, but his smile was polished. "You're a clever man, Poirot," he said, "but you're meddling in affairs beyond your grasp. Hand over the ledger, and we'll forget this little game." Tate, sweating, gripped his revolver tighter. Poirot's voice remained calm. "Sir Henry Grayson tried to stop your fraud. We forged deeds, stolen land, payoffs to men like Warwick. He died for it. Tell me, was it you who ordered his death, Monsieur Crane, or was Tate your executioner?" Crane laughed, but Tate's face twitched. Henry was a fool, Tate spat. Thought he could blackmail us into stopping. Dose of poison in his brandy heart attack, they called it. The confession hung in the air, and Eleanor, listening from the doorway, gasped. Crane shot Tate a venomous look. You talk too much, he hissed. Poirot seized the moment. And you, Monsieur Crane, thought you could silence a widow, a daughter, a village. But the ledger speaks louder than your threats. He revealed that Japp's men were outside, having followed Tate's train from London. The thread across the study door had snapped earlier, alerting Poirot to Tate's attempt to sneak in, giving Japp time to surround the manor. Tate panicked, raising his revolver, but Japp's officers burst in, disarming him. Crane, cornered, tried to bluster. You have no proof, he snarled. Poirot held up the ledger, its pages damning. This, and Warwick's testimony, will be enough. The Home Office will not protect you now. As the officers cuffed Crane and Tate, Poirot turned to Eleanor and Clara, who embraced, tears streaming. The final secret of Blackthorn Manor was, Sir Henry's courage. He'd hidden the ledger to protect his family and expose Crane's empire, even at the cost of his life. The next morning, Thornwick buzzed with news of Crane's arrest. The ledger was handed to Scotland Yard, ensuring justice for Sir Henry and exposing a scandal that rocked London's elite. Eleanor and Clara began rebuilding their lives, with Clara vowing to continue her father's fight against corruption. Poirot, sipping his tisane, reflected on the case. The little gray cells, they do not fail, he told Hastings, who grinned. You're a marvel, Poirot. But next time I'm bringing a bigger poker. This is the end of Poirot and the widow's secret. Crane's empire has fallen, Tate's confession has sealed their fate, and Blackthorn Manor is free of its shadows. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey. If you love this mystery, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more adventures with Poirot. Comment below, what was your favorite twist in this tale? Share your thoughts, and let's keep the detective spirit alive.